Namaskara to all of my story lovers. Welcome back in Storytime channel. I'm Pallavi reading interesting stories for you. Today I'm reading Soldiers in the Elephant's Stomach, written by the great Sudha Murty and taken from the book The Daughter from Wishing Tree. Now let's go to the story. This tale is from Swapna Vasavdatta or Vasavdatta's Dream, a Sanskrit play written by an ancient Indian playwright named Bhasa. King Udayana of Vatsadesha was young, handsome, compassionate, and pious. He was known for his mastery of his veena called Ghoshavati. He was so good at the instrument that when he played in the forest, elephants came to hear the music. The king had lost his parents and relied on the advice of his extraordinary chief minister, Yugandharayana. The minister was aware that other kings kept a close eye on the kingdom because of its young and inexperienced ruler. So he would frequently tell Udayana, "Oh, sir, I appreciate your love for the fine arts, but you are also a king. Please keep your focus only on the welfare of your subjects and maintain diplomatic relations with your neighboring kingdoms." King Udayana, however, wouldn't always listen. One of the neighboring kings, Pradyota, the ruler of Avanti, had a beautiful daughter named Vasavdatta. She excelled at almost everything. Pradyota was in search of a suitable groom for his daughter, but nobody was a match for her skills. People would often comment to the king, "Only Udayana is fit husband for her, but he doesn't want to get married. He is happy with his veena and barely has time for anything else." After some thought, Pradyota hatched a plan. He called the most skilled carpenters in his kingdom and asked them to make a huge, lifelike elephant that was hollow inside. After it was built, Pradyota asked his soldiers to get inside it and place the elephant in the corner of his kingdom, right next to the border of Udayana's kingdom. At the same time, he spread a rumor in both the kingdoms that a gigantic elephant has entered the forest of Avanti and is causing chaos among the subjects. Soon, the news reached Udayana, who was about to depart to the forest to play the veena. Yugandharayana stopped him. "O king, there is something fishy about the news we have received. I haven't heard any of our men confirming the existing of an enormous elephant. Our people haven't reported anything unusual on our side of the kingdom. If the news is true, why isn't there more panic around it? And why hasn't Pradyota done anything about it yet? I fear that there is something else behind this. I will advise you not to go to your usual spot in the forest today. But if you still insist, I will have to ensure that you take a few of our best soldiers with you." King Udayana was adamant about going to the forest. Half-heartedly, he agreed to take some soldiers with him on the minister's insistence. Once he reached the forest, he began playing the veena, Goshavati, and many elephants came to listen. Just then he noticed a big elephant in the distance moving away from the music. He said to his soldiers, "Never has an elephant walked away from me. On the contrary, the wildest of elephants come and surrender to the music without harming me. I think that big elephant is not coming here because of your presence. So go away. This is an order." Reluctantly, the soldiers retreated and watched the king from afar. King Udayana took his veena and entered Avanti's side of the forest. He saw the elephant, but it continued moving away from him. Despite the music, King Udayana couldn't understand what was wrong. He thought that the elephant's behavior was an insult to Goshavati, so he followed the elephant further into the forest. When he was deep inside the kingdom of Avanti, the soldiers emerged from the hollow stomach of the elephant and imprisoned him. With due honor, they presented him to Pradyota. King Pradyota was charmed by Udayana. He knew that if he requested Udayana to marry his daughter, the king would refuse. So he decided to trick him and made sure that he didn't treat Udayana like a prisoner. On the contrary, Pratyuta treated him like an important guest and said, "I apologize for bringing you here this way, dear Udayana. I have an ugly and short tempered daughter who is incapable of learning anything. I will gladly release you if you teach her the veena. You have a great reputation as a wonderful teacher, and the veena listens to you, as do wild animals. I am certain that my daughter will be able to learn something from you too. But remember that there will always be a curtain separating the two of you during the classes, and you must not see her face. Otherwise, her ugliness will cause you to flee from here." Later, Pradyota called his daughter Vasavdatta to his private chambers and said, "I have just taken an arrogant king as my prisoner. He knows the veena fairly well, but he is very ugly and short tempered. I thought that you could take advantage of his presence while he is here and learn the veena, but please don't ever look at him or you will run away at the sight of his grotesque face. Keep your focus on the education he is giving you. Respect that and don't worry about the physical form. A guru is, after all, a great man." Thus he lowered their expectations. Vasavdatta and Udayana began their music lessons together in a private room, a curtain separating them. Udayana soon realized that Vasavdatta was a sharp student. She was learning fast. One day she played an obviously wrong note during her lesson. Udayana became upset. "Oh, princess, you are not only ugly and arrogant, but also have not practiced properly since our last session. Beauty may be in God's hand, but the least you can do is focus on pursuit of knowledge." Vasavdatta became furious. "Horrid king, you must learn how to respect a princess. Besides, you are still my father's prisoner. I agree that I made mistake, but it was because I was in a hurry to come here and did not practice today. A teacher should be compassionate and guide his students well. You don't seem to have that qualification along with lack of good looks." An exchange of words ensues, and in anger they walk up to the curtain and the princess pull at it. Suddenly, they found themselves staring at each other. They were both extraordinarily good looking and fell in love instantly. This had been Pradyot's plan all along. From that day on, Udayana longed to see Vasavdatta every day. Teaching the Veena was forgotten, and instead they talked, walked in the gardens, and spent time together. So Udayana wanted to marry her and go back to his kingdom, but as the king's prisoner, he felt ashamed to ask Pradyota for his daughter's hand in marriage. He managed to send a secret message to his chief minister, Yogandharayana, who had been busy holding the fort in the king's absence, conveying his desire to elope with Princess Vasavdatta. One night, Yogandharayana sent a female elephant named Bhadra to rescue the king. King Pradyota learnt of the plan but decided to do nothing until the next morning. Princess Vasavdatta and King Udayana ran away from the palace and Bhadra brought them back to Vatsadesha. The next day, Pradyota pretended to be tremendously upset about his daughter's elopement with the royal prisoner and sent a few soldiers to track them down. Knowing that by the time the men did so, the couple would be in Kaushambi, the capital of Vatsa, which is called Allahabad today. As predicted, the soldiers came back empty handed. King Udayana, in a quick but grand ceremony, married Vasavdatta. The couple led a blissful life together. King Udayana was still the same, for he hardly went to the court, but now he spent most of his time with Vasavdatta. Their love and devotion were mutual. Many times Vasavdatta herself said to her husband that he should spend more time on his royal duties, but Udayana did not change his ways. Time passed and Yogandharayana grew extremely worried about the future of the kingdom. One day, when Udayana was away from the palace, the minister visited the queen in her chambers and explained the political situation to her. Queen Vasavdatta, I request you to please understand my dilemma. We are a small kingdom and our neighbors are mighty and powerful. If the circumstances were different, the king would have been advised to marry princess from our bigger neighboring state for diplomatic reasons and not for love. One of our neighbors, the kingdom of Magadha, is ready to invade us. If that happens, we will all perish. The princess of Magadha is Padmavati, and I recommended that our king marry her to keep the peace. Even if we approach the king of Magadha for his daughter's hand for the second marriage, he may be hesitant because your love for Udayana and his affection for you are so well known. Any king would think deeply before such a marriage for his daughter. I urge you only to think about what I have said today. Vasavdatta became concerned after Yogandharayana's departure. She was a princess herself and knew that the royal marriages were often arranged for the benefit of kingdoms. The unusual challenge she saw ahead was convincing her husband to get married again. It is very hard for a woman to tell her husband to marry another, even though the times were such that it was considered a king's privilege and right to do so. Soon, Vasavdatta made up her mind and spoke openly to the king, along with the Yogandharayana, who supported her and insisted on the importance of such political marriage for the welfare of the subjects. Udayana flatly refused. As long as you are with me, Vasavdatta, I cannot have any other woman as my wife. The next day, Yogandharayana came up with another plan and shared it with Vasavdatta. Queen, I have thought of a different approach to solve our problem. The king says that he will not get married again, presumably, for as long as you are alive. So let's pretend for some time that you are dead. Once the king gets married to Padmavati, you can return safely. Udayana's love for you is eternal, and no one feels it more than the two of you. What do you think? Will you help me with this plan? At first, Vasavdatta was taken aback, but the more she thought about it, the more she realized that Yogandharayana's plan was the only option to protect the kingdom and the people. As a queen, it was her duty to do so on. It was hard for her to leave Udayana, but she knew that it had to be done for a greater good. Within a week, the plan was to reach its culmination. Queen Vasavdatta, along with Yogandharayana, made a plan to visit Lavanika for a festival. King Udayana also wanted to accompany them, but the queen did not allow him to do so. Some time later, news reached Udayana that there had been a terrible fire at the festivities and that his queen Vasavdatta had died in it. Udayana could not contain his grief. He chastised himself. Why didn't I accompany Vasavdatta? At least we could have died together. I would have been much better than suffering through a life like this. He cursed his minister Yogandharayana. Why didn't he protect my queen? But it was too late. The king knew that nothing could be done. Stealthily, Yogandharayana took Vasavdatta to his home and she lived there, hidden from everyone. After several months, Yogandharayana conveniently brought the proposal of Padmavati to the king once again. Reluctantly, Udayana agreed for political reasons, and since he no longer had Queen Vasavdatta by his side. Soon the wedding preparation began, and the bride's party arrived. In the minister's house, Queen Vasavdatta became restless and couldn't stay away any longer. She felt an impulsive desire to see her husband once before he got married again. One afternoon, Udayana was asleep in the chambers adjacent to the wedding hall. Vasavdatta disguised herself in an ordinary sari and covered her head and face. Silently she approached his room. As she entered, she found Udayana muttering in his sleep, "O Vasavdatta, if only you would not have died in Lavanika, we would have been so happy. My life is incomplete without you." Vasavdatta could not control her tears. She went up to him and whispered, "I am always with you." She took a last look at the king and quickly walked away from his chambers. The king woke with a start. He called Yogandharayana and said, "Vasavdatta is not dead. She is alive. I saw her in my dream. I feel it in my bones that she lives. She visited me in my chambers and spoke to me while dressed in an ordinary sari. Why don't you stop the impending wedding and search for her instead?" Yogandharayana smiled. "Sir, Queen Vasavdatta is not alive. You dreamed of her because of your intense love for her. This is just a dream. Swapna Vasavdatta." Meanwhile, Vasavdatta decided to see the bride from the distance. Everybody was busy getting her ready. A lady in waiting saw Vasavdatta and mistook her for a flower woman. "Make 2 garlands for the wedding." They instructed her and ordered her to sit down to complete the task as soon as possible. Vasavdatta began making two garlands for her husband's wedding using her unusual technique of making garlands called Kautuka Mala. Her sadness grew deeper with the completion of each garland, and she couldn't hold back her tears by the time she was done. During the wedding ceremony, the garlands were exchanged and the couple was officially married. Vasavdatta stood behind a curtain, her eyes brimming with tears. Udayana traced his fingers along the garland around his neck. He realized something and said aloud, "This garland surely has Vasavdatta's touch. No one else can do this because I was the one to teach her Kautuka Mala. She is alive, I'm sure, and now I want to see her desperately." Yogandharayana came forward and said, "Sir, it was all my doing. Please pardon me. The queen is indeed alive and well, and agreed to do what she did to save the kingdom from invasion. Please forgive both of us." As the minister finished, Vasavdatta emerged from behind the curtain. When the king saw her, his happiness knew no bounds. He pardoned his well meaning minister. The new bride Padmavati approached Vasavdatta and bowed to her, accepting her as a sister. With renewed understanding and wisdom, Udayana lived the two queens happily ever after. This well known drama in Sanskrit literature is considered to be the gem of the language. The pure affection between the Vasavdatta and Udayana was used as an inspiration for future literature in Sanskrit. Do you like this story? Then tell me in the comment box and subscribe our channel. Thanks for watching, guys.